Welcome back to Facetime. My name is John Ryan, and today's guest is Cora Boyd. Cora Boyd is a dating coach. She coaches people about dating, but she was doing mostly just males, and then she went into doing couples, I believe. I think she says it in the episode, but I wanted to mention in this intro that this was recorded before the Black Lives Matter protesting started happening. And I wanted to put this out now, though, because I think it's important that people don't get too carried away with socializing. I get it. Protesting is important. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about socializing for the sake of socializing. I've been to a lot of parks last week, and everything's fucking crowded. And I'm not talking about protests at all, actually. I'm talking about just parks that are just people are there because they want to be somewhere. Also, people are going on dates, and I don't know if this is a good time to just start randomly dating again. So I wanted to put out this episode just to keep it fresh in people's mind that it just still be careful, you know. But it's also important to know that she's not a health expert. She's just a dating coach. So this is the advice she gives to people with the time that we're in right now, because she's doing it, and I wanted her to put it on this show so that other people could know. But anyway, check her out on YouTube. Man, I saw this. This is how I came across her. I saw this video about her with her, and it was on this YouTube channel. I think called The Cut, where they line up like 13 or 12 people, and then they're in it's 6 couples, but you don't know who's a couple, and she guesses. I heard the objective is that she's supposed to guess who's in the couple. So she calls like 2 random people up, and then she'll be like, okay, can you hug each other, tell each other I love you, talk to each other, whatever. And then at the end of it, she has to guess who's in couples. And she fucking got all of them right. And it was a cool thing. And once I saw that, I was like, all right, hopefully she'll talk to me on the show. And I got her to do it. So it's very excited to have her today. I guess that's it. Subscribe on everything you do use to subscribe. And that's it. Let's give her a call. Hello, how are you doing?
Got a nice candle, got my bubbles,
Yep.
got my fuzzy item, so I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm doing really good. What does work normally look like for you, like on a regular day basis? I guess now is it like just a bunch of Zoom calls?
So I'm not working with private clients anymore, so I run a core group program called Magnetics.
Oh.
So I facilitate group calls. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm sometimes doing things like this, or I might be meeting with clients privately who are in my group program, or I am working on content behind the scenes and just kind of like scheming up different projects, or reading about dating relationships, like reading up online, or just kind of educating myself.
Yeah. You seem to know like a lot. It seems like you've done a lot of research within the crevices of, the details of dating. So it's really cool to hear someone be able to speak about that. But with the groups that you were saying you do, because I saw that on YouTube, I believe that you were doing a group, but it seemed like it was it couples? Do you do couples also?
I do couples here and there, but my group program, it's like a 3-month program, and it's like a cohort. I take a cohort through this curriculum.
Okay.
So I'll lead those group calls and a lot of like group Q&As and stuff.
Okay, cool. And so you prefer that?
I like that, yeah. It makes it so doing group work makes it so I have more time to create content or like learn, and also just like I have a thinking nook that I actually set up last week. That was one of my quarantine activities. I go in this corner in this nook and I do all my deep thinking. So
wait, what is this nook? Is this like a sort of like a sensory deprivation nook?
Kind of. I set up. They fell down, but I set up curtains, so it's like it's complete introvert paradise, and I have a couch, and it's nestled in between some windows. So that's where I do my thinking now,
Wow.
or some of my thinking, or the bathtub, one or the other. But yeah, I prefer group. I do like private work, but kind of refocusing on group allows me so much more time to do all of the other things and like create more content that's accessible to more people too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was I was thinking the only thing that the only pop reference culture that a lot of people know about when it comes to a dating coach is Hitch. Is there
Yeah.
is there any other pop culture dating reference that or dating coach reference that you actually were maybe inspired by to like become a dating coach? Because it's a funny thing to think about. Like at what age do you even know about that and then be interested in it? Like, how did that even work?
Yeah, it's definitely an alternative path.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it like got on my radar like most people with Hitch, and then I actually was a matchmaker for a couple years. So and it's kind of like the whole dating industry is something that's very much. I'd say at this point it's established as an industry,
Sure.
but
Oh yeah.
only in the last that's only like codified in the last like 5 years or so. Or the first online dating I think was I can't remember exactly, but I think it was like 10 years ago or something when like it started. Like I think Match.com was one of the first.
Sure. Yeah.
But so yeah, I used to work for this matchmaking service, and the way that I got into that was just very intentionally. I heard about it as a thing, as like a potential job, and I just thought it sounded really fun. I was like, I gotta do this.
What does that entail? What does that look like beat by beat?
Yeah. So basically, I worked for a company and it was remote. My work was remote. They have kind of like a private Rolodex of singles. So I, as a matchmaker, I would work with clients individually, kind of get to know them and what they were looking for, and dating-wise.
Yeah.
Then I do prospects on their behalf, and then I create introductions, and then I debrief with them after. So that was also kind of like my crash course market research in what the hell is going on dating-wise. I just talked. The volume of people I talked to was immense.
What was your success percentage? I guess how do you even measure that too? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard to measure. They measured it in like yes to yes matches. I don't really remember what it was. I learned pretty quickly not to take responsibility for other people
Yeah.
in the dating world.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say like most of the time it went pretty well. Sometimes there were shit shows or horror stories that would happen too, as will happen when just like two individuals get together. Some crazy stuff can occur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two people with unresolved issues from their childhood coming out and manifesting their ways and dating across the table from a date. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly, which is why I transitioned to coaching too. Exactly that reason you just described, because I was just seeing how it was such a Band-Aid solution to be making introductions when people would show up with the same behaviors that were not doing them any favors, or emotional blockages or whatever it might be. So that's why I kind of pivoted to equipping people with skills and like creating this container where I support them and develop like doing it themselves, so that they can feel more empowered to be able to do it themselves.
Yeah. And so what made you, I mean, I know you've answered this in interviews before, but I'm curious, what made you go into it for the man side?
Mostly, so I also have since I specialize in men now, but I've expanded the scope of my work. Basically, anyone who comes and resonates with what I do and it's a mutual fuck yes, like I'll work with them if it's a mutual fuck yes. But I did start out with this niche of working with straight men, mostly because I saw and like I just kept hearing while I was matchmaking, how much guys don't talk about this all that much.
Yeah, man, we
Or
want to be cool. We want to
aren't
pretend we got it under control.
right, right. Whereas like most women have like a bureau of 5 friends they text immediately after a date in a group thread. So I was seeing that, and then I was
Yeah.
also seeing how like a lot of the support that was available, like if you're a guy who is like, hey, I would like to improve and finesse my dating skills, right? And these are things that we don't really formally learn how to date, right?
Mm-hmm.
We kind of pick up on
Whoa, that's
ideas,
true. There should be like a
right?
class in high school.
Right, exactly. So that's
Jesus.
basically what I do. I was like, whoa, there's a huge gap where like this is one of the most important areas of life for well-being.
Yeah.
And there are very few resources to go to develop these skills and like have these conversations. And then I was seeing too, for guys, that most of the resources available was like the pickup artist community, and just kind of like dark chat rooms on the internet. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's mildly alarming.
It is. Did you read that book?
I did read that book.
How did you like it?
I read it a long time ago. I mean, I was fascinated by it, but also just a bit disturbed.
Yes. I mean, there's, I mean, I didn't read the whole thing. I think I read it in like 2010 or something like that. A friend of mine was really into all that stuff, and I just thought it was. I just didn't, at that time, there's a little bit. The valve was a little bit more closed on, we'll say, like wokeness or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more like me, letting my ego get in the way, going, I don't need that stuff. And not that I needed it, but that I was just closed off to any sort of advice. It didn't make any sense. I was like, I'm 20 and I'm smart and I know what I'm doing. So, I didn't know what I was doing. But I read some of the book and I was like, some of this does make a lot of sense. But then there's, I don't want to say incel community, but something of that brand.
Yeah.
The blocked community that's just like feels like it's incredibly impossible to actually get the attention of someone you're interested in.
Totally. And I think where the interesting thing with the pickup artist scene is like there's a lot to it. It's dangerous in that it gets really tangled up, where like they're tangling up strategy and manipulation, where like there's inherently some strategy in dating, right? And strategy is just like putting some intention and some thought into what actions you're taking based on what outcome you're hoping for, right? So like I think there's absolutely, we need strategy, and especially in dating, right? It's like the strategy is the part of us that tells us not to like triple text the person that we had a great first date with, right? Like
okay.
Right? But I think with pickup artist community, it's like the strategy and the manipulation get really tangled up, and like there are actually some threads of like some substantial threads in what they teach, right?
Yeah.
But it's very tangled up in manipulation, and like manipulation is controlling someone else's perception of reality, essentially.
Can you say that one more time, because that's really good, and I think people need to know exactly that phrase. That's so good.
Yeah, manipulation is controlling someone else's perception of reality, right? So a lie would be manipulative because you're not letting them make their own decisions based on the facts, right? You're withholding information, or you're changing information. You're basically like disempowering them from making educated decisions for themselves. So that's where like with pickup artist stuff, it's a lot of it's really manipulative in that like their strategy to like put people down so that they'll go vie for your attention. Which is fucked up. That's just not good. But I would say like it's clear that the intention behind it is like, here are a bunch of guys who really want to be able to connect with people, and here is like a set of strategy set that can enable them to get laid, but that doesn't it by manipulative means, but that doesn't heal the underlying pain, which we also saw in the book. I think they all have mental breakdowns, or don't quote me on that, but that's my recollection.
I mean, it starts with Mystery having about to kill himself.
Yeah,
because of some girl, and then he it's honestly, if you just look at it as a story and not like a how-to book, then it's an interesting story,
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, so I being younger, I'm 32 now, and but when I was much younger, it was so easy to be swept up by tactics like that because they worked sometimes. The success rate was there, and as you get a little bit older, you kind of learn. Hopefully, people learn that that's just not the way to go. In a way, I had to go back and like make amends with a lot of people, like as if I was like getting sober or something, where it was like I had to go be like I had an awakening, and I was like, I gotta go apologize to whoever I hurt, and like you said, manipulated their reality.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, with current things like dating apps and like texting, and like that is its own platform of dating. Even texting is like lives in its own dimension, really, where it's like, I mean, there was one time when I had like someone who was almost my girlfriend, but then like at a certain point, she just kind of stopped being able to hang out for like 2 weeks straight, and I was like, but she was texting me frequently, so it was like, okay, our relationship exists here in this texting world only. So what is this? Doesn't make any sense. And then I think it went up to like maybe 3 weeks. It was to the point where I was like, I don't even know if I'm texting you anymore.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get caught in that, where they go on a date with somebody and then they just exist in that texting world, and it's hard to meet up. Do you have, like you mentioned, obviously you don't send the same text 3 times or whatever, but do you have like, I guess it would go play by play or case by case, but overall advice that you give to people when it comes to, let's say you go on a great date, for sure you both hit it off, and now it's Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think also the interesting thing with dating today too, and like especially dating today, right? Like, and what that means at this.
Oh yeah, I want to get into that for sure.
Oh yeah. Is that like people have different digital communication styles. So, some people love to text, some people like to voice memo, some people hate texting, some people, use a lot of emojis, some people are repulsed by emojis,
Yeah.
Like, I love how you said, like, it's almost like this alternate dimension, and it really is. So what I always advise, I really think texting in dating, especially like in early stages, as you're establishing like, okay, what is this dynamic, we really only need to use it for setting up logistics and occasional flirting and expressing interest. That's it. So like what I see a lot is people they'll go and start getting to know someone, and then they're having these like very deep, intense conversations on text. And if that floats your boat, I'm not here to tell anyone exactly what to do. That's very not my philosophy, but it's just like, that's alternate dimension connection. That's not like,
I would say that's
so much that can get lost in translation, especially recognizing how different people's digital communication styles can be, how we like can't pick up on people's tones, like all of that. So I really advise like, use texting and dating to set up logistics and flirt a little bit. Like kind of, send someone a picture or a joke or an article and kind of let them know you're thinking about them, riff a little bit, have that fun, flirtatious rapport. But in terms of like getting caught in the purgatory of text dating.
That's exactly what it is, purgatory.
It's a purgatory. Yeah, and the way out too is to like set a boundary with it, with your text of being like, cool, when are you free to hang? Or I'd love to hang out. I'm free Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
Let me know if you're up for it, right? And then, like, that's a drop-off point. And this is what I advise with like online dating too. Is like, give people drop-off points where if they're not serious about having an in-person connection, it's going to become evident. And then you're like, okay, great. Now I know what's going on, and I know how to make decisions and use my time better.
So a drop-off point, just to clarify, doesn't mean, hey, if you don't text me back by this day, we're done. you make it yourself, right? You put it on your calendar and you okay, if we're not hanging out by this date, it doesn't make sense for me to keep reaching out.
It's more like you expressing very clearly that you would like to meet up in person, giving them a few options so that, like just being very clear and that's your intention. And then it becomes very evident if that's not their intention. And then they can, they'll drop off if they're not into that. Right. But it's the courage of asserting what your intention is.
And so let's say that someone's getting, hints, subtle hints that like, no. And hints meaning I say, hey, can you hang out Wednesday or Friday? And they go, I don't know. And they don't say like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But let's say
offer an alternative.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you actually just like let that play out, or do you keep going, hey, let's say there was some sort of connection and you're like, what happened? And maybe they had a change of heart. You don't know. You have no idea what's going on in this person's head.
Yeah.
Is it good to just stay true to like whatever your plan is and do what you do, or I guess like act off of them in a way?
Yeah, I think in terms of moving relationships forward, it's all about like keeping pace in terms of your levels of investment in each other. So what I mean by that is like,
that's good.
So yeah, it's like watching people's actions, right? And like really letting that be the indicator of how much you're investing in them too. It's like, are they investing back? Or are they moving this forward with me? Or am I just like pushing this forward and they're like, maybe I'll kind of go along with it, right? Yeah. So it's always about like allowing enough space for people to reciprocate and indicate how invested they are. And when I say investment too, it's like energy, time, communication, upping the ante in terms of like and what you're doing together. So, inviting someone to meet your friend, that's someone investing in the relationship, right?
Right.
Emotional investment. So I think it's about the skill set in dating is really getting your emotion and your logic and communication with each other, so that like it's not just a question of, oh, I'm really into this person. It's also a question of, are they indicating that they're investing in me and that they're invested in this relationship? Because if they're not investing at all, like that's not a very wise place for you to invest a lot of your, time and attention. And also I think it's relevant to bring up just like the amount of time that we spend fantasizing about people we're dating, how excited we get, right? That's a form of investment too. So it's really just about like watching their actions and being like, are they showing that they're invested here or not? And then if you're inviting someone, hey, I'd love to, do that thing we talked about doing. I was thinking of doing that this weekend. Want to come with? And they're like, oh, I can't. And then don't offer alternatives. Like that's low investment behavior.
Yeah.
They're showing they're not that invested.
And you also just said something that's really interesting that I think really, I don't know if you agree that it works or that it's the way to do it, but you bring up something that you guys have talked about before.
Yeah.
Not like a new thing. Because a new thing can be responding to that new thing and not, and you take it as they don't want to hang out with you, but it's like they just don't want to do that thing, whatever that weird thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that could totally be. And I think like the invitation is always like, subtext is always, hey, want to spend time with me?
Yes, exactly.
Like,
that's it.
Yes, no, right?
So something interesting that's been happening to me a lot. All right, so I'm single. I'm in New York. I'm in a pretty unique position right now. You know what? Actually, before we get into this, do you mind if I pour a drink? I've got an ice bucket.
Very classy.
I had to make it classy for this. Also, I love talking about dating because it's been something that like, everyone can talk about. It's my
exactly.
Yeah,
that's part of what I love about what I do, and like making this an area that I've studied so intensely is like, number one, it's relevant to literally everyone, and number two, like any walk of life, any age, whatever. Everyone wants to talk about dating. It's interesting.
Everyone wants to be wanted.
Vested interest, right? Exactly. Yeah. And then Number two, it's like talking about dating is really a microcosm to talk about pretty much everything else in society, because everything else comes up. It's gender politics, it's socioeconomic stuff, it's biases come up, it's like, what do you value and why? It's all of these things. It's such a gateway to look at just how we operate in the world. So it's always interesting.
Yeah. And this is actually the first drink I've had all quarantine.
Wow, I'm honored.
Yeah, I haven't really had a reason to drink. I'm just alone, so I'm like, what am I?
Yeah.
You know. And everyone I've interviewed has been like non-drinkers, pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyway, so cheers, and thanks for doing this interview. But I wanted to talk about what was it? Oh, you mentioned. So there's a way that people can, I guess we'll call it like that alternate reality, the texting, what do you call it, purgatory, where it's just this weird dimension that you hate to be in. You know, you just want to see this person and see them emote, and you want them to see you emote. And what I've been doing. All right, so my unique situation is that I'm from Los Angeles. I'm 32. I took a job out here. I don't know many people out here. I have, work friends. I have a couple friends here and there in my neighborhood, but at this point, no one wants to really like hang out, and not just dating, but friends also, especially in people's places. So. There's something, I've been FaceTiming a lot of people, obviously. But aside from this, I've just been FaceTiming friends every day. And then I'm like, well, this makes the most sense. Everyone must be FaceTiming. So on Tinder, or I'm on Tinder and Hinge. Those are the two apps that I'm on. Yeah. And the conversation will be going well. And then I'll somehow bring up FaceTime and then just... crickets.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll get past that barrier and we'll talk about FaceTiming and it'll be fine. But they'll say, FaceTime gives me anxiety. But meeting up doesn't. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that, and I've come across it more than once. I wouldn't be asking otherwise.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting right now because there's not, first of all, everyone still wants to date. That's been very evident, and that's been very evident in my work. And what I've been seeing people do, people are getting fun and creative with it. I had a client who posted a really funny blurb in his neighborhood Facebook group that he was looking for a quarantine wife to Zoom with, and that like he got a bunch of Zoom dates with this. It was great.
Okay, so like someone to meet up with, really, or just to Zoom with?
Oh, to Zoom with, and then potentially meet up. Yeah. And then I've had clients who are like met people on Twitter and Instagram. So I think there's an opportunity to get creative with the different digital platforms we're using. I do think obviously nothing stands in for in-person connection. And this is something I was already talking about and already a little bit concerned about dating-wise prior to the quarantine situation.
Okay.
Just because online dating was really like so many people have this desire to meet someone in real life and don't think it's a possibility or think that people do it less or whatever it might be. I've just heard a lot of frustration around the apps, but
sure.
I think there are some positives for dating in terms of what's happening right now. One is that people are getting more creative. Yeah. Another is that the entire dating script or, status quo has been disrupted, which leaves more opportunity for people to feel like they can chart their own course, chart their own path, which, was always the case. Mm-hmm. Always the case that you could do that, but now you absolutely have to, because there's no how-to book on how to date in a quarantine, and no one else knows what the fuck they're doing either.
Right.
So what I'm seeing mostly is that they're meeting on apps, or they're meeting on on Facebook groups, or so like different kinds of social media introductions.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll Zoom a few times, and then depending on where they are, they might go on like a distanced nature walk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's the trend that I'm seeing. So I
Mm.
would say, and you're not the only person who's told me that there's like a lot of like, first of all, that the apps have surged
Yeah.
because everyone's at home and they're, you know, bored and they want to connect.
Everyone's
There's
horny too.
Everyone's horny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone has needs. And it's not, I know
Everyone,
that like sometimes it could feel weird to talk about, but everyone has needs. Everyone needs to have sex. Everyone wants that connection, that release, whatever they get from it. But
mm-hmm.
it's something that people are lacking right now. And,
Totally.
you know, I can totally understand people getting creative and trying to figure out how to connect.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like exactly what you said of, we all have needs, and one of them is to connect. One of them is like physical, one of like sexual. We have a lot of different needs, and
Mm-hmm.
those needs have been kind of short circuited, a lot of them currently.
Yeah.
So people are finding creative workarounds because no one's going to stop wanting to connect. I think what's interesting too is like, right now people want to connect more than ever because they're a little freaked out. You know, anxiety levels are understandably high, and it feels good to connect with other human beings when
Yeah.
we're scared.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that that's what we want most right now, or what we need most right now, and that's what we can't do.
I know.
But we can in different ways, right? So for, you know, people actively dating right now, the option is to hop on the FaceTiming bandwagon, or, you know, phone calls, or
No,
whatever it might
man.
be. So,
Yeah.
so like with those women you talked about, they'll probably come to that point because what are they going to do? Not date for the foreseeable future?
Well, she was like, "Why don't we just meet up?" And I'm like, okay." First off, meeting up is much more of a commitment. I think
Yeah.
you know. Also, I live in Brooklyn. She's in Manhattan, so this is just no one in particular. It's like someone who I matched with on an app. It's not someone that like I'm currently like hanging out with
You're
or
not
anything.
invested. It's low investment. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, you want to come all the way from Manhattan to Brooklyn. Somehow don't use the subway right now. You know what I mean? And then hang out for, I don't know, an hour and then go back. Like, I would feel bad if it was just an hour and then it's like, okay, well, we're outside for how long? Like,
Right.
6 hours outside, like at some park that's we snuck into or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Totally. Yeah, I think another potentially good thing about FaceTime or Zoom video call dates becoming a norm is that there'll be kind of a stand between in real life and the apps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's much easier to hop on a video call, and you can tell so much more about a person being on a video call with them than you can messaging on Tinder, right?
Yeah.
So it keeps it low commitment, where I actually think it'll mitigate people going on shitty dates because there's some sort of pre-vetting happening, right? And it's very convenient. It's from the comfort of your home. It's really easy to do.
It's also like your risk is low, like because right now the risk of like going anywhere is a disease. It's a disease, or you know. So you could go meet up with someone and be like, I can't believe I risked my life for this potentially. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's been strange because I've got that several times where they're like, I don't like FaceTiming. It's horrible, and I almost think like half of that might be like a trendy thing to say that FaceTime gives you anxiety. You know, I don't know if that's like something that you've come across, but it's like I can't put, I don't know, I'm just so confused why, but it was just a question I had that, but that's cool. I agree. I think people will start coming around, or they're gonna have to, you know.
They're gonna have to, and I guess there's always the option of a phone call too. Sometimes people feel more comfortable with a phone call, but also it's like you're going to have to meet someone. You know, a lot of people feel uncomfortable meeting in person. It's like something's got to give at some point if you're going to connect with other humans. And it's got to be a phone call or FaceTime or meeting up in person or, you know, whatever that's going to look like moving forward.
Something I'll do that's, I feel like, a gateway to FaceTiming is just sending a voice memo.
I love voice memos.
You know?
Yeah. I love them.
And just going like, hey, what's going on? Sorry, I don't have like enough hands to text at the moment. I'm cooking or whatever I'm doing, but I wanted to answer your question. Hey, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then more than likely, like 80% of the time, they'll send back a voice memo.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Love voice memo. Exactly. It's so much more personal. I'm a huge fan. I think it's refreshing because it's a little more uncommon. It's really personal. They can listen to it again and be like, oh, his voice. you know?
Yeah.
And it's a little more intimate. It's also, you know, it's bold. It's bold because you're taking it into territory that's more personal. Yeah, I think it's bolder than just sticking to text.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the voice memo.
Yeah, same. That's so do you think people on Tinder or any dating app that they're on, they should state that in the beginning so they don't like, what if someone doesn't like FaceTiming and they just want to weed out those people and because they want to FaceTime with people and not wait 1 month until they actually find somebody? You know, is that something you should put up front, like looking to meet up, looking to FaceTime, looking to, you know what I mean? Like, is that something that they should put there?
You absolutely could. And when you say up front, you mean in your profile?
Yeah, like in your bio or something.
Yeah, you totally could. And then I always recommend, like even under normal circumstances, keeping that text thread or, you know, message thread on the app between 7 and 10 messages before you ask to either like transition to texting and then arrange to meet up. But it's like, the more it's the investment thing, right? And it's the purgatory again, because the more energy and time you're putting into this correspondence and like dragging it out, right? The more you're investing in this relationship, and then like you also don't know what it is until you meet up, FaceTime, whatever. So why not just cut to the chase faster? And the reason I say 7 to 10 too is because you want to riff around a little bit, right? You want to like build some rapport, feel out, okay, like there's some shared humor, there's some potential for connection here. But you don't want to ask before there's any, you know, before both people feel comfortable and there's been some established rapport. Otherwise, they don't really have much to go off of, right?
Yeah.
And this is a bit different when we're talking about meeting up in person versus FaceTiming, but not really that different. And then, most people don't want to acquire a new pen pal who they don't even know, right? So I was like the faster you can get in person or, you know, as the case may be, FaceTime, the better, because it's the app, that's just the initial point. That's the initial platform you connect on. That's not where you build a connection.
Right. Yeah.
You build a connection when you meet. It's just an avenue to facilitate a meeting. Yeah,
because there's a lot of people... That needs to be said a lot more, because there's a lot of people that are trying to do the opposite.
Yeah, I think it's something like a third of people, and this may be an outdated statistic, but I read somewhere that a third of people on dating apps have never actually gone on a date sourced from an app.
What are they doing? This is a video game.
I think they're on the toilet. Or something.
It's like... I mean, for people so for people like me that are on dating apps that are, because here's the thing too, is people are also very afraid of being vulnerable. There's a lot of people, like, obviously I'm only swiping on girls because I'm a straight male, but when I see, like, majority of girls that I've seen, not majority, sorry, I don't know, some, I guess I'll say like 15 to 20% of the girls that I actually see, like, feel interested in, that I see on apps, will have like a bio that says like, I don't want to meet you, or something like that. Something that's just like, okay, so what are we doing here? Or like, I don't want to be on this. This is stupid. I don't like this, or something like that. And I'm like, why can't you just admit that you want to love somebody
Yeah.
and you want to be loved, it's not
Yeah.
hard to put yourself out there. We're on a dating app already. Like,
Right.
just say, I want to meet somebody and, open up your heart and something might come in,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I've like those ones crack me up, or when people say like, "I'm only on here because I lost a bet." It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Let's just drop the stigma.
Yeah, I think people also, maybe like you were saying, it cracks you up. So maybe they're trying to be funny too.
Yeah.
So maybe just
Yeah.
feeding into that attitude behind, like, isn't this funny? We're on this app. Um,
Yeah.
do you think that there's like, okay, so this sounds ridiculous, but I had a question from a friend. I hit up a lot of people because I was like, hey, I'm doing this interview with Cora Boyd. I want to see if they have any questions. Is there a world where people start meeting up and having, okay, I'll say from my end, which is what I've researched, which is the risk now is COVID, obviously,
Yeah.
right? So it has been said in I want to say it was the CDC. I forget. No one quote me on this. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about, but it was said somewhere that most of the risk comes from transmitting it through kissing, and not necessarily, like, it's not an STD. It doesn't get sexually transmitted. Do you think that there's a future in dating where there's no kissing sex?
Oh man, I hope not. That would be horrible. That would be awful. That would be so impersonal.
I know,
Um,
right?
yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens. Because obviously, they are still learning about the virus, and then obviously people are getting a little restless. We do not like to be socially isolated. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens. I would figure at that point that people would be having sex, that they would have reached past the point of fuck it,
Yeah.
and just kiss.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought. But I think that would be very sad.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched Demolition Man. Have you seen that?
No.
It's a movie with Sylvester Stallone and Sandra Bullock, and it's basically about a cop that gets frozen. It's to where technology is able to freeze you for hundreds of years. So he's frozen for like 200 years, and then he comes out in the future, and now the future is at a certain point where no one really touches each other. People are all wearing bodysuits. When you shake hands, you just go like that, and the other person goes like that.
Yeah.
To have sex, you put on this headpiece thing, kind of like headphones, really skinny headphones that goes on your temples, and you can just like experience each other, and then you actually can like orgasm and stuff like that. But that's like the future. It actually made me really sad because I was like, okay, it's very easy to spiral with all this stuff going on.
Right.
But
it's
that's
very Black Mirror.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's strange. So, but so what would you say, like, is a safe date idea? You mentioned nature walks, but I mean, how? And I know, just to state the obvious, you're not like part of the CDC or the WHO.
Right.
You're not a scientist, anything like that. You're simply a dating coach. But have you been talking about any safe dates? Like, is it safe to go to someone's place? Is it safe to go with someone on a walk to, like, not safe, I'm sorry, that's the wrong question for you. Is it normal to, are people doing that? Is that out there right now?
Yeah, because that's a very different question.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I've heard of it happening quite a bit with walks and like park hangouts, right? Or yard hangouts where people will sit on separate blankets, might even wear a mask. But what I understand too, and obviously people have different pods, and it's challenging to talk about this, and even to like know fully like where the pulse of all of this is, right? Because there's so much messaging that is very confusing, right?
And messaging, you're not talking about.
I'm talking about like culturally.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So to the question of like whether it's safe, again, not
Yeah.
not a healthcare professional. I would say, it sounds like healthcare professionals would say like no.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think what we're seeing too is that depending on how long this goes on, like people are going to need to be around other humans, in some capacity. Otherwise, like that's a detriment to our health.
Yeah. Mental health for sure. I've been having very dark days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Mental health, which is the mind-body connection, connected to physical health, and like then that's like, okay, does that increase your likelihood of getting the? I don't know, right?
Right.
But I am seeing it happening, and I think the thing, the tension to play with here too is like, if we're responsibly hanging with a handful of individuals, it's like, okay, then it's almost like an STD conversation about like, who else have you been hanging out with?
I know.
Like, who have they been hanging out with, right?
Actually, in a weird way, isn't it kind of like, it's kind of like the conversation that we should have been having all along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm going to put this in the podcast or not, but I'll tell you. Very quickly when I moved here, I was hey, single guy in New York, I got a great job out here, I got a nice place out here, I'm dating around. So I was like, being a little slut around Brooklyn and Manhattan, right? And so your boy ended up catching something.
Yeah.
It was curable. Took a pill, went away.
Yeah.
But before I took the pill, I gave it to somebody else, and I had to tell them.
Yeah.
And I cared about both of them a lot.
Yeah.
To the point where I was like, I don't know which one I want to date, because I really, really, really liked both of them, And if only we had had the conversation as like truthfully as we need to have it now. Are you hanging out with anybody else?
Right.
Because, there was a lot of shades of gray between me and this person or these people. But right now it's like, it almost feels like a felony if you were to lie to someone about that, It feels incredibly unlawful.
The stakes are high. Yeah. The stakes are totally high in terms of like the honesty around that. Yeah. And kind of to answer your question of, is it normal? It's like, it's happening. That's what I'm saying. It's definitely happening. That people are, going on dates, and then obviously like the degree to which they are adhering to all the distancing or not is really, give or take. But I'm hearing about it. Like that's the progression of how I'm seeing people dating, and what I'm hearing about, and what I'm seeing with clients too, is like, you meet, you Zoom, you FaceTime a bit, maybe you intersperse that with talking on the phone and some voice memoing, whatnot. And then people are typically then doing some sort of outdoor hang, which is interesting too, because it does, it changes dating, and that it really strips a lot of the theatrics of it, or the performance of it, right? Of the
It does.
curating the date, or and I think that's part of what we're noticing, not just in a dating way, but in a personal way. We were just talking about mental health though, but like so much of distraction is stripped, so we're left with, okay, like, what's going on with me? Like, how am I feeling? What's going on over here?
Oh my God, yes.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then similar dating too, it's like, whoa, okay, does it feel like a lot of pressure to just have it be about the conversation and the connection? If so, it's like, interesting, what were we hiding behind before, right? So I've been getting a lot of inquiries too, of people really wondering what to do on virtual dates, or how to make it really special. And I think it's really adorable and heartening to see how creative people are getting with it. And I had a client, they both got dressed up fancy, and he had dinner delivered to her place. And I love that. I think it's so cute. And I love just the spirit of innovation that's happening. And, I also don't think it matters that much what we are doing, right? It's just about, can we have a conversation with another person, right?
Wow.
And can the activity be, okay, maybe we're figuring out what to do together, or you're screen sharing or whatever it might be. And if it's fun for you, awesome to do something creative and theatrical, right? But why do we feel such a need to do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Do you because okay, so I have a lot of friends that they're my closest friends in life. And at a certain point, I'm not going to call it a bandwagon, but I might have treated it as such. They started reading a lot of self-help books, which is fine. I get that. They started reading a lot of self-help books, and some of it felt a little bit cringy to me. And this might be the thing is when I was 20, I was not open to advice, and now when I'm 32, I'm not open to it until maybe in a couple of years, right? It could be that. But it feels like, because a lot of what you're saying is mirrored on the other side, because or I guess you are specifically talking for men, aren't you?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, so what I've been hearing a lot from them is a lot of things that you've been saying too. Going back to what you said about 7 to 10 messages and then make a date, and that's it.
And then if someone's not interested, then you don't want the same things. I think so much of dating too is really taking the time to clarify with yourself, what do you want to experience? What do you want? And then not putting that forth into the world and letting people fall off, filtering out the wrong people faster versus what can I do to get this person to like me, right? And that's part of it too. It's okay, if you actually want to FaceTime with someone, people are weeding themselves out by not wanting to do that, right? Versus you have to change something of what you're doing. It's just a misalignment. You're not on the same page, right? And it's better to know that sooner than later.
Yeah, there's a I forget who I was talking to about this, but we were saying that text chemistry is very important in dating somebody. Do you think you can establish that within 7 to 10 messages?
I think you can. I don't think you necessarily will. And I don't think that you have to necessarily, right? Because again, it's any of these initial steps, they're just initial steps, right? So there's not nothing has to get solidified. That's just you feeling out, okay. And this is what I say too, in terms of agreeing to see someone again or whatever it might be. It's it's just at these various intervals, especially early on, is there enough intrigue for me to want to keep talking to this person? Or is there enough intrigue for me to want to meet this person? Or is there enough intrigue for me to want to see this person again? That's it, right? Versus this certain things needing to be established at certain points, right? Yeah. So I think you can kind of feel that out, right? Also, some people have, it's awesome to have great text chemistry.
It's really fun. It honestly can be really one of the funnest things. Yeah.
It's so fun.
Especially if you're busy, if you actually can't meet up for a week straight.
Right.
And you're making each other laugh, and I feel I've actually felt in the beginning of this quarantine, I was kind of talking to somebody, and I didn't feel lonely at all. It was great. I mean, maybe it was because it was the beginning, but also once it dropped off, there were just certain signs and stuff that we weren't really compatible, so we just kind of stopped talking. But once that happened, it was almost within a few days, this wave of loneliness hit that was like, oh my God. So the text chemistry went away. I think I'll say it for you if you don't feel comfortable saying it. If you would even say this, I feel like having someone to text right now is a really good way to feel not lonely.
Yeah, I think it's a fun way to
and it's
banter.
safe.
And it's safe. Yeah. It's a fun way to banter and feel connected and kind of have something to feel excited about, right?
Yeah, something excited about.
If it feels fun, that's awesome. If it feels stressful, that's something to notice too, right? And that's true for anything in dating, right? It's like always follow the pulse of what's fun for you. Like the rules of like, I don't believe in dating rules. I just believe in like, educating yourself on some of these fundamental dynamics, and then also following like your intrigue and your curiosity and what you enjoy. So like if people are having a great time, having fun, bantery text, awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. There's like a lot of really fun like things that I'm trying to do. I mean, right now, as the moment is right now, I'm really not talking to anybody, which is, I mean, let's be honest, that's kind of rare for single people in general, right? Like, do you actually find that people that are single are generally talking to 2 or 3 people at a time, or one? You know what I mean? Like, no one's really single and not talking to anybody, right?
Sometimes, yeah, it depends on the person, but like a lot of people will be, there's like a rotation on the back burner of just like, send out a little smoke signal over here, send out a little smoke signal.
Yeah.
Totally.
For sure.
But I hear you. It is for someone who's an active dater, and like I'm in a relationship now, but prior to that, like I was a pretty active dater. I was pretty much, always talking to someone in some capacity.
Right.
And I think it is kind of good for us to like have these eras of like, oh, what is it like to not do that? What is that? And that can shed some light too on what you get from that and why you like it. And it's just perspective, right? It's stepping away from something and gaining a little perspective on it.
Okay, let's say like a vaccine is out tomorrow. Holy shit, they did it. You don't have to worry now. You can go to CVS and get a fucking shot, and you're all good. Do you think people are still going to be hooking up? Like, is the one night stand obsolete?
I think it's interesting because all of this has certainly turned hookup culture on its head, right? Because now it's like, oh,
I'm so sad.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
People. Yeah, it was fun while it lasted. But, I don't, we need to have sex. I don't think the one night stand will ever be totally dead, ever. Yeah. But I do think maybe it'll be less commonplace to have a lot of casual sex with different partners. And if it's, whether it's tomorrow or, 6 months, a year, 18 months, whatever, I think everything that's happening has really is and will shift a lot culturally. And we can't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but rest assured, people are going to fuck. They're always going to fuck. But I think it might look different, right? The culture of it might look different. In the same way that, people have always been having casual sex, but it was just more under the table. And then in the past handful of years, and then, like hookup culture in colleges, universities, whatever, it's almost been for a younger demographic and, certain subsets, it's like you hook up and then you get to know each other emotionally.
I know, man. Yeah. Which is backwards.
I think, and as someone who's very sex positive, I'm fully support people having sex. I think it's really healthy. But I have also talked to so many people who have felt very dehumanized by that culture. and felt
By
kind
hookup
of like,
culture?
yeah. So
In what way?
in that, I think many people feel it's transactional or impersonal.
They just feel discarded.
Yeah, yeah. So my hope is that we can create a better balance between the emotional connection and the physical connection.
Yeah, I mean, I the way that I was always really sexually active, with like as a single person being sexually active, it became more like sport, which I know sort of sounds like it's, I guess, objectified or something negative, but it's not. It's more like, do you want to go play tennis? It's more like that, you know. You want to go, you know, and then I had a friend. I've known her for like 10 years. We're just really close and cool, and I guess we're really attracted to each other, but for some reason not interested in like going further.
Yeah.
But we had a routine, maybe like once or twice a year. We would just like hang out, have some, go to a movie. Like it was straight up like a date. Like it was a one night stand twice a year.
That's awesome.
It was great, and like I would still do that with her. She's like an amazing, smart person, and we would also hang out and like not do that too. But like definitely twice a year we were hooking up.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know. That's like, I don't know. That's important, I think, for people to know that it's not.
It doesn't exactly. It doesn't have to be transactional. Yeah. Casual sex does not have to feel impersonal.
Yeah.
I think it can, depending on the people having it and how they're conducting themselves, right? But like, it absolutely doesn't have to be impersonal.
So we're at about an hour right now. What I normally cut these down to take out like any dead space or any like repeated facts or anything like that. Do you have about 15 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna like pour a little bit more.
Awesome.
And I had people message me on Instagram, and I'm gonna open it up right now and read you some. So, all right, had some messages from Instagram for you. This is maybe one of my favorite ones. Let's see. So, what's the best way to navigate red flags in a time like this, when people are really stressed out, people are depressed? Do you accept certain red flags? Do you just see them as like, oh, this is how they handle bad situations? How do you navigate a red flag within the dating world during COVID?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, a lot of red flags often become evident when we see someone out in the world interacting, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they're rude to the wait staff, or you notice that like they don't, they tell a lot of stories about friendships that have gone south, and you start to get a little curious about like, who's the common denominator in that situation?
Yep.
Or you see them in different social settings, and you just get to see different parts of them emerge, right? Because people don't really advertise their red flags. They usually don't verbally say it, right? And sometimes a red flag is hearing something and how they talk, right? Or like getting suspicious about how they're telling a certain story or whatever it might be. But so much of how we pick up on red flags is seeing people in action out in the world, right? So that is something I have thought about. I think in terms of how that question was phrased, it seemed like, well, they brought up, okay, people are stressed out. There's lots of low levels of anxiety, some high levels of anxiety too. Yeah. So in terms of all of that, I think what really matters is how people conduct themselves, right? So like, let's say they're having a hard, and do they take that out on other people? Do they take that out on you, right? Let's say they are, feeling kind of low. You're chatting with someone remotely, right? They're feeling kind of low. It's like, how do they talk about that with you? Is it that they just get cranky and lash out?
Yeah.
Or is it they're like, hey, I've been noticing I'm feeling like really grouchy, and I like, am
So if they
low
can
energy.
actually identify their mood and go, I don't know why
Exactly.
this is happening, but I feel this right now.
Right, right. Or even I know exactly why this is happening.
Yeah,
There's a
sure.
global pandemic, right? So I think paying attention to how people talk about that, right? And also like that's a huge indicator of maturity and self-awareness and emotional capacity too, is how people talk about their experience. And like also if they let themselves feel a little low, right? I think that's a huge sign of maturity versus pretending everything is fine all the time. So I would, with the circumstances, if you're talking to someone remotely, pay attention to how they respond to stressors and pay attention to how they talk about their experience.
Can you just
The
define
fact
stressors for people that don't know?
define stressors, anything that stresses you out, anything
Okay.
that anything that stresses you out.
Okay. All right, cool.
So I think the fact alone of them having a hard time just makes them human. So I wouldn't see that as a red flag at all. It's really
Okay.
you get a glimpse into how they move through that, how they move through adversity, how they move stressors, and like that's a huge indication of maturity and character.
Yeah.
And if you're ever not sure, you can ask questions, and then get them talking about a certain thing, and then you can kind of see their capacity for introspection or their lack of it, right? And then you take all of it as information, and you just collect it all as information.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess it can kind of actually be summed up in not summed up, but it can be explored by maybe a general idea of how to get to know someone in general. Like just saying, how is your day today? Oh, this thing happened. I was at work. My boss said this thing. It kind of pissed me off. Okay, well, what'd your boss say? You know what I mean? Like just general, like getting to know someone. Yeah.
Exactly.
But focusing on those. Okay.
Right, and then you can start to notice the patterns. It's like, okay, if this person blames everything on everyone else and can't take any personal responsibility, or like this person is really lashing out in these types of ways without bringing the awareness of, oh, I'm a little on edge right now because I've been socially isolated and there's a completely uncertain future, right?
I know.
It's understandable for people to be having a hard time. I think that's totally okay. And like that's also someone being able to recognize that's happening is a sign of maturity. But yeah, it's exactly what you said of asking these follow-up questions, and then you just start to see how they process things and how they think, how they respond to things, and you just go from there.
Okay, cool. All right, so that was from Marco. Another question this is from Jose. Now I asked him about this question because it sounds like a joke, but it's not. I can rephrase it for him. You know what? I'll say it how he asked it, and then I'll talk about how he meant it. What he asked is coronavirus an STD now? How he meant it, which I think we kind of touched on it earlier, which was, are we going to have to treat coronavirus like an STD now?
Honestly,
again, not a health question for you, but more a social question for you.
Right. Yeah, I kind of think so, because it is that question of like, who have you been hanging out with? Like, have you been sleeping with other people? Have you been tested?
It's kind of the best thing to happen for one night stands a little bit, right? Like in terms of disease, right?
Yeah. And I think that might be a good thing, because it will inspire people to have more candid, upfront conversations, which hopefully will get them practiced in having other kinds of candid, upfront conversations.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing right now too, is like, because of just the realness of what's happening, I think everyone's like a little bit more open to truth and to connecting on truth, rather than kind of what we talked about around hiding behind the theatrics, or, you can't pretend this isn't happening right now. And like, really what we're facing is our mortality, right?
Yeah.
And that's deep. That shit is deep, right? So you're
Yeah.
gonna be having conversations with people that cut directly to the chase,
Oh
um,
wow. Yeah.
right? Which I think can be potentially a really good thing for dating and relationships, right?
Mm.
Is like a lot of the facade melts away.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a great point. So there are advantages to this pandemic for dating, particularly.
Yeah, I think it's that it people are also more emotionally open, because again we're being faced with some very real questions having to do with mortality and
Right.
like
Also, our
life.
families and friends' mortality.
Exactly. So I think like everyone's a little bit more emotionally open, which
Mm-hmm.
can be, and a little on edge, right? But like this, that can be something that connects us if we're willing to meet in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think that this really sheds even more light on how valuable relationships are,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we may be noticing the ways in which we haven't prioritized it and shifting that into, whoa, I really want to prioritize this more.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is that whenever we can interact in person again, we're going to be so excited to do it, and it's going to be like a treat to get offline. I mean, I feel like it already is. We're all
Oh my
so tired of
God.
Zoom calls, right?
I
So
can't
I see
wait.
that as positive. Is like I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot more like quality to in-person interactions, where so much of what has killed quality of in-person interactions is phones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, like they're not going anywhere, so we got to learn to work with them. And they also, we have all of these networks that we're seeing now. Technology is what's keeping us connected
Yeah.
in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like I think it's about balancing it. And like I read a piece of research too, where if you're having dinner with someone, the very presence of a phone on the table decreases the quality of connection.
Do you remember where you read that?
I don't remember where I
That's
read it. Have
really
you read
good
it?
because
Yeah.
it totally does.
It totally does, because you're like, oh, are they not listening to me? Is there gonna be an interruption, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping is that like when we do interact, whether it's in the future when we can, at whenever, right, or it's you're sitting in a yard at a slight distance with your friends, right? Everyone's gonna be so fucking sick of technology that I'm hoping that will create a higher
Oh
level
my
of
God, what a
interest.
good point.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
That's gonna be
Wouldn't that be great?
great.
I think
Yeah.
it's already. I mean, I'm noticing because I'm when I'm seeing my boyfriend and we don't live together, so we're fortunate in that we're not driving each other insane. And
Mm-hmm.
it's nice too because I'm like, okay, I need to get out of my house. I have somewhere else to go. But I noticed that it's like I don't want to be anywhere near the TV or the phone
Mm-hmm.
when we're hanging out because I'm so tired of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the thing where, like, anyone that I'm hanging out with now, like, I have a friend from work that we go meet at the park and we sit at a
Yeah.
table across from each other, like a park table,
Yeah.
and we just talk. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. We're not on our phones. Like, it's not. Or I have another friend that we just sit on his stoop and we just talk. It's become
Yeah.
this thing where, like, why would I be on my phone and waste this valuable time with a human?
Exactly. So my hope is that will really transition how we are valuing spending time together
Yeah.
and the quality of that time.
All right, so I have a question from Rob, and this is a question from the internet. I'm trying to figure out exactly why he asked it, but I do like how complicated the question could seem. What's it like dating a dating coach, and what's it like being a dating coach and dating?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know what it's like dating a dating coach.
Would you date a dating coach though?
Didn't I?
Would you date a dating coach?
Would I? If I was into them as a person, totally. Yeah. I would. And what is it like dating as a dating coach? It's kind of funny for me to say because it's just my experience. So it's hard for me to distinguish that from just the experience of being me.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do my best to not put pressure on myself to be perfect. And I do, like, in the work that I do with clients, and I think, what I hope has been evident from this conversation too, is like, my intention with people is never to put them in a box or put pressure on them to be perfect or tell them this is exactly how you should be doing it. I actually think dating and relationships are like this super fun playground for personal growth and exploration and learning. And I approach it that way too.
Yeah.
So that being said, I definitely do hold myself to a high standard in terms of, you know, not being super reactive, not being a goddamn baby, you know.
Yeah.
But like, sometimes I'm a fucking baby, and I let myself do that because I think that's part of being a human, and that's part of being vulnerable, and like the vulnerability of love and opening up to people is that like sometimes
What do you mean you're a baby?
What I mean by that is like I have moments where I am like reacting instead of responding, or I might be being a little bit petty, right? But I let myself do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it's not even a question of me letting myself do that. Sometimes it's just like, well, this is happening, right?
But actually, being a dating coach helps you when times of you being a baby does help you navigate through those feelings and go, okay, this is what's going on. You're sort of just pulling the curtain over, pulling the curtain back and going, okay, let me see how these gears are working and let me put them in the right place so that I can respond the correct way.
Exactly. Or even just seeing, hey, I'm like really pissed off and feeling really petty right now. I'm going to go take some space and feel that way before I come be in conversation. Like, yeah, it's that self-awareness. And like part of it too is like allowing myself to have the full scope of that experience. So I think that for me, I mean, it definitely makes it so I do experience a really high quality of relationships in my life, friendships, romance, like love life, all of those things. And I really do practice what I preach too. And that like, I could not be in integrity and go teach and work with my clients and be saying something different than what I'm doing. Because so much of my personal experience informs how I work with people too. So I would say that, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. And it's the full spectrum, you know? And that's also why I'm so passionate about really bringing that, like, the fun and the exploration and the realism into the approach that I teach clients and how I work with clients is, like, I'm not telling them go be this type of way and be rigid, because that's not fun. And, like, relationships, you know, ideally it's an area of your life that inspires and energizes you, not one that stresses you out and depresses you, right? And that's the thing to look at is like, if we're trying to be so perfect versus being like, I'm gonna show up and be vulnerable and be me, that's draining, right? So I don't really fuck with that. That being said, you know, sometimes relationships are stressful. There's stressful moments, and those are things to work through, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's kind of a long-winded answer of like, what is it like dating as a dating coach?
No, that's fun.
Extremely interesting.
It's great. It seems like it's actually very, there's got to be a word. I don't know the word because I didn't go to like a real college. But there's a word for sure that has to do with like, it sounds like contextual, but it has to do with like textbook. It's contextual. It's textbookual. Dating a dating coach. Prescriptive.
Or like by the rule book, maybe. By the book.
I don't know if it's by the book because that feels like too in a box. It feels a little bit more like maybe the answer would be a little bit more like...
cerebral, maybe.
Cerebral.
Like head.
Yes.
Like too calculated.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a problem. Yeah. All right, let's go to the drawing board. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of just like, I feel this way, I'm going to react this way, and we're not going to talk about exactly how we feel and what's the root of this problem.
Yeah.
we're gonna go away. So it's the opposite. It's okay. Well, that's
right. It's I brought it up early on in the conversation. It's it's like allowing both your logic and your emotion to have a seat at the table in terms of how you're conducting yourself, and getting them to be in dialogue with each other and respect each other.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, oh, I'm feeling this way, I'm going to trust that feeling. And then also there are times where you're just like feeling something absurd and you're like, logically, okay, I can see, I just need to let myself feel that for a little bit, and then I can simmer down and come back and have a conversation.
All right, so I think I asked all the questions. I was going to ask one for me, but I guess I asked all of the audience questions. Here's my question. I'm going to put myself on the line here a little bit.
Okay.
All right. I have a Tinder bio and a Hinge bio, and I'm going to look at it. I'm going to see which one you. Okay, so my Tinder is actually I have it really simple. The only thing that I have on it is in the bio. I have I just say, here's my Instagram.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I feel like it's a little like if we were talking about the idea of transactional, I feel like it's really just keep it simple on Tinder, right? So I just put my thing. What I'm going to do is send you a photo, a couple stills of my Hinge profile, and I want you to rate it. And don't hold back. Just tell me what you think about everything. I want you to think about, in terms of, you can tell me I don't look attractive in certain photos. You can tell me I look more attractive in certain photos. You can tell me I'm talking about weird things. Tell me not to link it to my Instagram. Any of that helps. And this is just for me. This is just because I'm the host of this show and I need to put myself on the line. I don't want anyone to think that they're getting taught a lesson unless I'm not getting taught a lesson also.
Awesome. Okay, let me see.
Okay, they should in a
Oh,
second.
here it is. Okay, awesome.
So they're in order. The first one is the overalls.
Okay. I'll fall for you if you have a great immune system.
You know what's funny is I had that actually way before I've had that for probably like a year.
Yeah. That's really funny. Let's debate this, is this a simulation or not? I like that you have your Instagram linked. I think that's a good move because, first of all, women are, they're thinking about safety and they want to see you're an actual person. It also gives them a lot of fodder to go off of, right? Like there's a lot, they can look at your thing and kind of infer things about you and if there's someone they would feel connected to or not. Mm-hmm. The picture of you with the Modelo.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's a very flattering picture, but it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
It's kind of hilarious. And it's also like an interesting optical illusion.
Right.
I don't love the picture of you with the hat down because you look kind of bored and not as approachable as you actually are.
Interesting. Okay.
I like this picture of you and your friend in the pool sticks because I think it shows your sense of humor, and it does a good job of showing a bit about like your social life without it being a cliche like group wedding picture.
Oh wow, she's good. Okay.
And
what about the sunglasses photo?
I like it. I think it's funny because the tag is still on. Like, there's humor. There's clearly humor in all of your pictures.
Do you think that humor is like one of the most important things to have in your social media, in your dating profile?
It is if that's something that's important to you, which I'm getting that it is based on this.
Okay, so yeah, I guess it is important to me. I didn't realize that till you asked it right now or said it.
Well, you're also clearly you have an artistic sensibility that comes through.
Where does it come through?
Well, it comes through in like your overalls, like that's a bold choice. I like it. It comes through and like
People that wear overalls are normally creative, just so everyone knows.
Yeah, I mean, it comes through also in that, like, you're choosing pictures that are a little bit, like, offbeat and a little bit unusual. Um,
Ah.
so you're not, it's not like a basic sensibility in that you're picking, again, like, hiking pictures and group wedding photos. Um, so there's, like, an interesting angle, right? And, like, even with the tag thing, it's funny. I like it too because it feels very candid. It's also funny because you have sunglasses on your shirt and you're clearly in like a convenience store or something. So it feels like you can kind of imagine being in that moment with you. Like it captures a moment.
Wow.
And that's what I like about the one with you and the friend too. And like, you know, your friend is like riding the pool thing like a broomstick. It's like, oh, they'd be fun to hang out with. And like these are moments too. It's not there. None of this is canned. Even the one in the overalls, like it's like you in action. And the Modelo one again, like I don't think it's a very flattering picture of you, but it got a laugh out of me.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty funny, and it's also like I'm like, how does that even work? That obstacle. So I would say like the one I would switch. There's also not a picture of you smiling. There's no picture of you smiling. So
Wow.
I would swap out the one of you with the hat, the close up where you look a little bit bored and a little bit unfriendly for a higher quality picture of you smiling so that we can just get a more dimensionality of your personality.
Wow, that's good to know,
so
actually.
That's my feedback.
All right, so now I'm going to tell you what gets the most responses. First off, shout out to Hinge. Hinge actually is very good at what they do, which is trying to get people to match up. They're so good at that. It is probably the best dating app for me in my experience.
Yeah.
And I've done them all for a long time. Raya, you name it. I've done them all.
Yeah.
And this is the best one. Now, I also work in tech. So knowing about tech stuff, I know how they do this. I know the algorithms they run. I know the experiments that they do to try to get people to match up. I'm very familiar with how that goes. The tests that I'm involved in, I'm like so impressed by Hinge much more now. All right, so here's my results that I've come across. Number one liked thing of all time from this profile. Is this a simulation or not?
Yeah, it's great.
Possibly close second is I'll fall for you if you have a great immune system. That's like they might be switched actually. I'll fall for you then maybe they're tied, but people go like women go after. They really like those two things, which is again a nod to Hinge because you can like the prompts and not necessarily you don't have to like the photos.
Right.
All right, photo wise. The beer can one, definitely.
Yeah.
That's number 1, 100%.
Yeah.
That's the one that they like.
It's funny and unusual.
I think that when women see me, they want to laugh. No. Let me rephrase that. I think when women see this profile, they see something that makes them laugh and they enjoy it, and they want more of that. So they like the photo that makes them laugh, and they want me to embellish on that.
Right.
Though also the second place is the one that you talked about, me hugging my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then third place is probably the sunglasses one with the tag. And most recently, the overalls.
Yeah.
And not only that, the comment, the first message is, "I like your overalls," even if that's not what they liked. So, I mean, when you pointed out all this stuff, I mean, you nailed it. And actually, I forgot I even had this photo.
Yeah.
Because no one said anything about it.
Swap that out for a high quality smiling pic.
Wow. Okay. Should I?
There's no pictures of you smiling.
Is it weird to do one where I'm like doing this podcast?
No.
You think so?
Let's do it right now. Let's take a screenshot.
Well, I have a camera I have 3 cameras recording, and I have one right here. So maybe I'll just take a screenshot from this and just me smiling. I'll find some time in this interview. But well, we're at a good amount of time. Cora Boyd, thank you for doing this so much. This is one of my favorite interviews that I've done so far. Where can everybody find you?
They can find me on Instagram at the Cora Boyd, CoraBoyd, or my website, coraboydcoaching.com. And thank you so much. This was really fun.
And you're not just coaching men. You're coaching anyone who's romantically involved in all walks of life.
Absolutely.
All right, yeah. Cora. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great one.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching that episode of Face to FaceTime. That was amazing. I mean, she's right. Everyone can talk about dating. That's the gateway into all conversation. She's totally right about that. She's right about pretty much everything she said. This was an amazing episode. I'm so excited that I did this. I'm so excited I reached out. And, I mean, I don't even know what to say because she said it all. But thank you for watching so much. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. I feel like I want to have her on again. There's got to be more questions. There's got to be more. I feel like she has anything I brought up. She had something to say for a while that she knew about. So I feel like I personally have more questions. I don't know about you guys, but if you do have more questions, please let me know. Comment wherever you're listening to this. Comment on my Instagram, whatever it is. But it's Face to FaceTime, at Face to FaceTime on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment, please, questions. Because what I'll do is I'll just have her back on. And that to me was incredibly insightful when it comes to, just knowing where we're going, especially if you're a single person. I mean, even if you're in a relationship, this is important to know, right? Let's say you're married and you live in New York and you're like, oh, my husband's going to go get avocados at the store. I mean, is he being safe? Again, this isn't about safety. This is about trust. There are things to navigate within a relationship. If anyone for some reason took away any safety tips, this is not what this podcast is for. That is not what this episode is for. This is for relationship advice. This is for dating advice. This is for things to look forward to in the dating world. This was an amazing episode. I don't know what else to say, man. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram, at Face to FaceTime. My YouTube channel is just search Face to FaceTime, and same thing with not Instagram. I already said that. I'm all drunk or something. I don't know. I had a fucking drink or two in this episode, and I haven't had a drink in like 70 fucking days. All right. So, but the other thing is the podcast apps. Any podcast app that you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Google or Spotify, subscribe, rate, and review, please. Thank you, face people. Face to FaceTime. Face fuck people. You face fuck. I love you. Bye.